the area where I think I've seen the best strategic planning and execution is actually Airtel. If we compare across all sectors, and I mean, I've worked in Zambia, South Africa, I've also worked in Papua New Guinea in Asia. So even compared to Digicel, which is in Asia, the strategic planning and execution at Airtel, it's very advanced. They've got one of the most scientific strategic planning models. And I mean, before I went there, I was good, but when I went there, I was sharpened. The first big lottery that we had was called Kwachamania. It was really massive,
I remember that.
Yeah, so basically, Ernst & Young seconded me to help this Israeli firm to set up Kwachamania and then to be the advisor to the president and finance manager for the first 1.5 years. So Kwachamania basically was actually, you can say it was set up by me. The whole distribution system, financial management systems, I was the one advising the president. And then after we set it up, that's when actually I was left there. So if you look at all these assignments, there are things which you are doing for the first time. It's never been done before. Liquidations had never been done before. Privatization had never been done before. We had never had a lottery company of that magnitude where you're selling lottery tickets in all the districts in the country. That had never happened before. You know, so, and that's the thing about consulting work. You get trained to do something for the first time you've never done before. Most people feel comfortable doing something which has been done before, or you're talking to somebody who's done it before and they're telling you what to do. Nobody will tell you what to do. You have to research, and then you have to come up with frameworks and tools and do it yourself for the first time. You won't find anyone advising who's done it before, because no one had ever done it in the country before.
Wow. How did you then move from telecoms? What was the next step in your journey?
Okay, so from telecoms, I decided now to go back into development sector. And mainly since then, I've been sort of specializing on these trade and investment programs, SME programs. I've got a lot of passion for SMEs in Zambia. So I sort of was a consultant on a number of them, quite a number of them. I mean, most of those programs funded by USAID, and then there are also some funded by the EU as well as from the Finnish government, and the World Bank as well. I mean, there's now what is known as the Zambia Agribusiness Trade Program, which is the flagship program that the Zambian government has with the World Bank. At the moment, it's gone to phase 2. There's about $120 million. The first phase at about $40 million. But then all these agribusinesses, we're giving support to them. Right now, we're able to create, SMEs that breaking into areas which were mainly reserved for maybe foreigners and things like that. So a good example, we've got SMEs that are now supplying ShopRite, Shoppies, before local companies couldn't break into that market. You know, whether you're supplying processed meats and everything, because the standards that they require are so high. So now we're able to, train those SMEs as well as provide them loans so that they will be able to meet the health standards and quality standards that are demanded by these international chains. And you find that there are a lot of success stories that we have. Most of these local SMEs, they've now grown big, and some of them are even exporting. So that's something that I've sort of been doing since then. Yeah.
That's amazing. If you could think of one of such local success stories, maybe you can share one example.
Well, there are many.
Not to put you on the spot to pick one.
Okay, there are many. There are many. For example, Merak is a beneficiary of the Zambia Agribusiness Trade Program. And they got other beneficiaries. You can see Merak is big there. I mean, they've got a very wide range of products. Then there's also, I think one of the best examples, I've forgotten the name of this butchery, but there's this young man. When we found him, he had a butchery in Mutendere. And very young guy, a youth. And he got a grant from the Zambia Agribusiness Trade Program, and right now he is supplying into these supermarkets. Now the thing is this, the thing is when it comes to processed meats,
Yes.
health and safety, the standards are very high,
Yeah.
So we managed to provide support to him, apart from getting the money, but making sure he's able to get certifications, ZABs and these other health certifications, such that they could accept his processed meat in that in the supermarket chains. And to do that, it's not so easy.
Yeah.
Because the standards those they require are so high. But now they were able now to sort of substitute these other big players and have just a young man. He's just, I think he was just about 24 somewhere there. He's actually now
Wow.
quite big,
Wow.
and is now supplying into this supermarket chains. And then some of the other examples I can also give, there are some who are also into things like honey processing, and then there are some who are into these dried fruits, fruits. Some of those fruits
Yes.
that you see in the supermarket, the
They
peanut
are
butter.
Zambian.
Yeah, Zambian. What you do is,
Oh.
if 10 years ago, when you go in a supermarket shelf in ShopRite, 90%, three quarters were all made in South Africa and everything. Now, when you go there, what you do is just get the label, see where it's been made,
Oh.
and then you will see most of these are made in Zambia. So most of those have had support either from the World Bank project, ZATIP,
Yeah.
and there's a bit of this AGS program. It also funded some of them. But ZATIP focuses more on agri-processing. So most of these things which are made from agricultural products, these foods, ZATIP has funded quite a number of them. There's cooking oil, all those things. Those are all products of that Zambia agribusiness trade program. And most of these are just simple people. These that you see from the local neighborhoods. No need for a
Oh.
big surname. Yeah, just because what we do is when we're looking for the beneficiaries, we walk in the communities,
Yeah.
we see what businesses are there, and then we see which ones have potential, and we say, we think you would benefit. Would you be interested? Then we invite them
Okay.
over. And then sometimes what we do is would walk into the supermarkets, we look at the products, and we see the ones who already at least have a product, and then we see how we can actually enhance that product as well.
Oh.
Yeah. So we would go look at the labels, we look at the name, we do back to front now. From the product, we find who the supplier is. We say, okay, we can improve by maybe either you diversify the products by improving the quality of the same product, and then also increasing production, because I think one of the other challenges some of them have is, some of these supermarket chains would want you to supply in all the supermarkets. So sometimes they only do part of it, but they prefer you supplying to all of them,
Yeah.
which means big volumes, and you need
Yes.
money for that to expand to
Yeah.
supply all the supermarkets. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of good stories to tell happening through these programs, and I think a lot of these Zambian companies have been empowered through technical assistance as well as funding from these different projects.
Okay. So, with your vast experience across all these sectors, are there some strategic principles that apply to all these sectors, despite being in private sector or donor funded? And are there some principles that have not changed over time that you see that they're still applicable today and they were working even in 10 years, 20 years back?
Okay, I think one of the biggest critical success factors is good corporate governance. So that's something that I've seen there, and most of the local companies fail not because of funding but because of corporate governance. So you find that even when we're doing the due diligence, we always look at the corporate governance. Now, the thing about corporate governance is that you have to look at the context. So the principles are the same, but the way you execute will be different in an SME, which is family owned, as well as in a big company like Airtel.
Yeah.
In Airtel, it's a large company, it's listed. Um, you can't just copy and paste what you do at Airtel and then Banda and Sons with the family owned with the
Yeah.
annual revenue of 2 million kwacha. Corporate governance will be, but the thing is, the principles are the same.
Yeah.
But now you have to customize it
Yeah.
to that thing. So it means that even when we're implementing such projects, we come up with tailor-made governance solutions. We make sure that there's good corporate governance. You're not going to force them to have a board of directors of 5 people. You have to whatever. But as they grow, you have to come up with a governance. There must be some governance.
Yes.
There must be systems. There must be accountability. So the principles of governance will need to be there, and of course, and then for each SME again, it might be different, because some of them might be family owned 100%. Some of them, it might be 4 people who know each other. They've put money together. So the solutions again will be different in those. So we come up with tailor-made solutions to ensure that there's at least a governance system there. Because if there's no governance system, even if you lend them $1 million, it will all go to waste.
Yeah.
The governance failure will come in, and then you find that investment in that company will not work. So I think I mentioned one. So governance is something that has to exist in all of them. Then you need things and even principles like having strategic planning. You need to have an annual operational plan. So you have your plan, you have your annual budget. Just those basics need to be done.
Yes.
Because without planning, you cannot execute properly. So if they say if you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail.
Yes.
So that issue of having a plan is very, very critical. So you find that those principles will apply whether you have a small company or whether you have a large company. Then there was a flip side. What was the other part of the question as well?
Okay, so the other part was just so while we look at what's applicable across all these different sectors, but are there also some principles that are still applicable today that were applicable 20 years ago? And are there some things that we've had to do away with that we felt at the time were important for strategy?
I think generally, the principles will be similar, except that you see the environment that we operate in, it changes over time. I think
Yes.
priorities change over time. So for example, if you look at maybe the funding options that existed, say 20 years ago, and now they're quite different. So it means that it will affect your planning, because the funding options are different, and even the conditions that come with the funding are also different. And then as well as the trends in the demands in the environment, like I talked about, now ESG is a big thing.
Yes.
So ESG is so much is such a new trend that if any company that ignores it will find that it will be at a disadvantage sometime in the future. And some people will think that ESG is just for those large companies, it's not for small companies. But small companies will get affected as well. I mean, already Zika has introduced IFRS 1. It will be for this financial year. It's when you're reporting next year, they need to. So from a reporting perspective, already it's there. But then the large companies are subjected to ESG, some of them through the stock exchanges and then even the financiers. But now the large companies are now being forced to look at the whole supply chain. So meaning that you are a small company, but you're supplying to the large company. So that large company is going to impose ESG standards as well and practices on you. It's because it's a requirement of their main funder. The main funder might be a shareholder. It might be someone who's just giving them a loan.
Yeah.
The conditions of the loan is that you must adhere to ESG principles. So you find that the whole supply chain gets affected. So I think for companies that think that they won't be affected, they will be affected, because you might even be supplying a supplier who's a bit bigger than you. But so you find that those conditions are passed on in the whole value chain.
Yes.
So I think these changes, which are caused by trends, they now are going to affect the way we are operating, the way we are planning as well. So just being aware of all these new trends. I mean, after ESG, there'll be another new trend.
Yes.
I mean, there are also issues to do with, say, cyber security and all that. So I think the key thing is just knowing what are now the changing global risks, like artificial intelligence and cyber security, and then trends like ESG. So those affect almost everyone. So you just have to make sure you adapt the way you're doing your planning and execution.
Okay. Great. And earlier on, you mentioned how you were able to transition from private sector to donor funded and back. Was there a certain mindset shift that you are required to have when you're moving across these two different sectors? And especially when it comes to leadership roles, are there opportunities for leaders to transition from one sector to the other? And what is the necessary mindset shift that is required?
Yes, there is, I think, a mindset shift that's really required. And I mean, like I mentioned, you find that, the group in the NGO world think they're special. And normally, if they're trying to, if someone applies for a job, they've never worked there, they feel like you can't, you can't fit
Yeah.
in, you can't survive there. So I think one of the key things that you really need to understand the dynamics in each sector, and then sort of adapt to those dynamics. So, for example, in the profit making sector, performance management is more stronger than in the development sector.
Oh,
Performance management is really, really tight, because I mean, you start the financial, when you do your annual operational plan and your budget, you find that the targets that the company has will be cascaded with targets for an individual. So almost everyone will have a target there. And if you do not meet your target, you find you'll be put on a performance improvement plan.
yeah,
And then if you're not improving, you are kicked out. I mean,
yeah.
it's so generally most of the profit making companies operate like that. So that doesn't work that well as well in the non-profit. So if you look at now the annual plan, you find that, for example, in the private sector, they will have a target, say, for a profit and everything, and sales and all that stuff. And then if you meet your target, you get an annual bonus. So you find
Yes,
that the bonus is attached to your annual performance.
yes.
In the NGO sector, you get a 13th check. Whether you meet your target, whether you miss your target, you're getting a 13th check. So everybody is having Christmas in NGO world.
Okay.
In most of the profit sector, it doesn't work that way. So
Oh,
so
okay.
just looking at that, it just tells you the difference in the mindset change. So the other guys know that we need to work extra hard if we're going to enjoy Christmas. And if
Yes,
they will really meet their target, they will have a bigger Christmas than the other side. But
yes.
the non-profit sector, whether they hit their target, miss their target. But that's just one example. But it just shows you the way the annual plan is just designed. It just shows you the difference in the mindset. So it means that even the way they will be working throughout the year will be different. It's because it's
Oh,
because the other ones know that if we don't meet the target, we're not getting anything for Christmas. The other
yes.
ones know we are getting something, whether we meet the
Whether we meet
target
it or
or not.
not.
But I can give you other examples, but that just shows you the difference in the mindset. Then the other one I think is also when programs are being designed in the nonprofit sector, they do a lot of data and analytics. Strategy is mainly based on research. Is
Okay.
the data. So if you are in the health sector, for you to come up with a strategy, it will be based on research findings, breakthroughs in the health sector, and that's how you come up with your strategy. Um, there's less of that in the profit-making sector. A few, but there are exceptions, which are the minority, because generally ideally, the research should be based on doing actual market research. Then you, based on the market research and everything, that's when you come up with your strategy. Many companies don't actually do market research,
Yeah,
but there are exceptions. There are some which do. Normally, it's the bigger ones which can, because market research is expensive,
very
and mainly it's the
expensive.
multinationals. Multinationals can afford. They'll get the big market research firm like Airtel used to get Ogilvy from Kenya. They would do
Oh,
research.
okay.
So for Airtel, would have the research done, but then apart from that research being done in the telecom sector, you get a lot of data through your system. We know
Yes,
more about the customer than, for other, for example, Zambia, to know about the customer, they have to send people in the field
yes,
and all that stuff. But for telecoms, everything is on the computers. We
yes.
know everything about market behavior per second. Whatever is happening, it's because every time you get your phone, right now when I'm getting my phone, they know everything about my behavior. Everything's
Yes.
in the system. So
Yes.
you find that there's that element, then you just have to do a bit of other external market research. So it means that when you're doing your strategy, that information is already known because you've got your data to rely on. But that's the exception. Majority of them, some of them based on intuition, what they think they understand by the market. You talk to a few customers and everything. But I think there's a strength in the development sector because for them, whether it's you're in climate change, whatever, there will always be research papers being done. They're always getting scientists to
Yes.
do it. So that's the strength that I would say the development sector has. It's
Okay.
what they call evidence-based decision making.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And still on the topic of moving across sectors, today, what mistakes do you see young people making when it comes to transitioning between sectors? Because I believe there are probably still opportunities to do such movements across sectors. But are there things that young people are doing that are keeping them boxed, for example, in one industry?
Okay, I think one of the key things that the primary motivator for most young people is money. They would they will apply for the job with the highest money.
Yes.
It's nothing to do with long-term career planning.
Mhm.
Now, the problem with money is that you can get lots of money, but then you end up being in a box, and then you find that you reach a stage where you can't even move from where you are because you were just following money, and there's nothing to do with long-term career planning. Because when you look at long-term career planning, it means you have to make a sacrifice to get the right career move. You find that you may have to forego extra income. You may find that you may have to get a job which is paying 20%, 30% less, but
Yeah.
it's taking you into the right career path. But then normally what happens is that then the money motivation, it will come up later. So it comes down to the law of economics. You have short-term losses but long-term gains.
Yeah.
So you have to forego something to get something. It's a simple principle of economics. Basically, it's the opportunity cost. So the principles of economics apply to careers. Many times you would have to give up something to gain something.
Yeah.
So it means in the short term you're going to lose, but even that financial objective that you had, you may find that in many cases you will get it, except it will happen in the long term.
Yes.
Now, just that most people look at
The short
short
term.
term gain and short term money today. You're just thinking about today.
Yeah, that is very true, and it's something profound because it's like these days, we young people,
Mm,
we don't really sit down to strategically plan our career and what it's supposed to look like. We are chasing what is the next highest pay. Yeah, so that
yeah.
is very important. And also, how important is continuous learning in staying strategically relevant?
Yeah, I mean that's very important because the environment that we live in is changing. I mean, change
Yeah,
is the only constant.
yeah.
So, for example, I mean, I did my SEMA long time ago. Then, about 7, 8 years later, I did my MBA. I'm still studying. I mean, right now, I'm studying courses related to ESG. It's
Ah,
because ESG is new. I need to up my game,
yes,
and the thing is, it's because in the next starting from now in the next 10 years, ESG will remain relevant.
yes,
But then the thing is, the work that we do, it's integrated. It's not like you can separate ESG, whatever sector in. I mean, like I sit on a number of boards. I sit on financial services. There's also mining boards, etc. There's ESG in all of those. They're different sectors, but ESG is coming into them. So you can't say that, okay, ESG is not for me. We'll separate it. I'll just
mm,
deal with my own stuff. Me,
mm.
I'm just an accountant, or me, I'm just a business administrator. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So you need those skills because the problems come in integrated way. So you need always to see what skills are relevant and then up your games. I mean, you don't need to get a degree for everything. There are different types of courses. There are some which are
Yeah.
very specialized, much shorter. You get enough skills for you to have a practical impact at your workplace.
Yeah.
So right now, I mean, I've been doing a number of sustainability and ESG courses, and I've improved my skills in that area. So I think even for other professionals, they need to see do a scan of the environment and see what new skills are needed. And
Okay.
reports normally come every year of what skills are needed, what are the major risks. There are all these reports done by the World Bank, the UN. So the information is there.
Yeah.
So it's up to you. You read them and then you choose. And these days with online options, there's so many ways of improving your skills. You don't necessarily need to go leave your workplace and stay in a college for 6 months or 1 year. It's not necessary.
Yeah, true. And you mentioned how you sit on a number of boards.
Yes.
So, how have you observed strategic decision making differing when you sit on a board rather than when you are sitting in management?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good question. And since I've been in senior management and the board, you find that whenever I'm on the board, I always look at it from the management's perspective. When I'm on
Okay.
management, I look at it from the board's perspective. So it gives me a bit of an edge there. But I think the challenge that most people have who haven't been on both is that if they're in management, they always look at it from their perspective. So you find that, for example, even when they're making decisions, they won't look at it from the board level. And the board is always looking at it from the top. The
Yes.
board is representing the shareholder and all stakeholders. So the board has to balance between the interests of management, interests of the shareholder, interest of government, the customer, everything.
Yeah.
It's that balance. So the board is not supposed to be biased. And I mentioned those stakeholders because they're normally conflicting interests. So you find that, like an experience I had recently, where one company had challenges meeting its annual targets, but then management was proposing a payment of like annual performance. I mean, in fact, it wasn't an annual performance bonus. It's like an annual bonus, but then they didn't meet their thing. So now the management was conflicted in that they didn't meet the target, but they still wanted to get this
Oh,
like year-end bonus.
yes.
So now, if that and we could understand because those people had never worked on the board, so they could not look at it from the other perspective. The
Yes.
other perspective is think of the shareholder.
Shareholder value.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shareholder value. Shareholder is the one pumping in money. They have, because if you don't meet your targets, they need to pump in more money.
Yes.
So they were conflicted in the decision making and the proposals they were making. But assuming that those people had board experience, because the board always looks at it from a broader perspective, they probably were not going to make that proposal, or they would have adjusted the proposal to say, maybe let's just get a fraction of what we're expecting because we missed our targets.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important I think for any senior manager to have a broad perspective. But unfortunately, some senior managers are not yet that mature to have that broad thinking. But it all depends on the level of experience someone has. So sometimes that conflict can bring a lot of tension in the company. Yeah.
Okay. And sometimes boards, with what you've mentioned, it's possible that them looking at things from that higher level, they may overlook certain things that management is probably not doing correctly. So in such situations, how does the board ensure that it's providing the correct oversight? Because the oversight may be there, but management may also be misreporting certain
Yes,
things.
that happens.
Yes.
Yes, that
So,
happens. Yeah.
in your experience, how does the board still ensure that it is covering everything that it's supposed to do in terms of oversight?
The question you've asked is actually very important because on the different boards I sit, there's what you call board or operational overreach. It's where, they say the board should deal with strategic issues, management, operations.
Yes.
That's what the textbook says. But in practice, it's not that easy. In
Yeah.
practice, it's a bit like if you know how to drive a manual car, when you're going over the flyover bridge, you don't step on the brake, you step on the petrol and the clutch.
Yes.
So you
To
move.
balance
So the way you balance, so sometimes your petrol has to go deeper, sometimes. So that's how the boards are supposed to operate. You don't step on the brakes, but you change the speed according to basically you have to balance. Now, there's no formula that you're going to find that tells you how to balance. You won't see any book that will say the balancing equation is A plus B equals C. It doesn't exist. It's all based on experience and reading the intuition. Now, I'll just give you some of the experience that I've had there. There are some boards I've seen where maybe because you're saying we need to be strategic, management have been able to do certain things, and you discover that actually maybe management was actually misreporting or not disclosing everything. And normally you discover those things when there's an internal audit report that has been done, because they go deeper, because they
Yes.
sit down with management and they discover all these things were happening and you were not aware. And it's possible for management not to report everything. And
Yeah.
some things you may be aware about them late, and
Yes.
sometimes it's even too late. So that does tend to happen. The other extreme is because now you want to make sure you know what's happening, you may do an overreach that is too much as well, where you are now meddling in operational issues. And so what management normally does is, if they want to hide something from you, they always accuse the board, no, you stay away from operational issues. This is operational. This is our baby. So
Yes.
basically, they're using what you call reverse psychology, saying, if you do this, you're interfering in our forte.
Yes.
But sometimes it is necessary to do
To
that. And
interfere.
even from literature, it is something. Now, only thing is that those exceptions, some people don't know when do those exceptions happen. So, in fact, there's actually an article I'm writing on just to talk about it, because I think it's a challenge that most boards had. They don't know the exceptions when the board needs to overreach and basically meddle a bit in the operations. Some of them are when you're having challenges with a CO, poor performing CO, you're not meeting your targets. There's sometimes it's when the team is not operating as a unit. There's a lot of infighting, and with crisis management. There's a big crisis that happens. A good example is when I was appointed as CO at Finca. We were making losses. Then 3 months after I joined, COVID came. So it's almost like there was a sinking ship, then it hit an iceberg. When that happens, the board, now I was put as CEO, the board had to get more operational. It's because we're in emergency mode. It's almost like the ship was sinking. So we had to come up with a turnaround strategy. So to do that turnaround, it meant that the board had to get more operational, get more hands-on, and to monitor things on a more regular basis, not waiting for a quarter, but you are getting weekly dashboards and then monthly reports as opposed to quarterly reports. So those things are supposed to happen according to the situation. So it's not all the time that the board needs to stick into his strategic lane, then
Yes.
management, but the board needs to know when should they cross over. If they don't know when to cross over, then it means that there will be a challenge in that company. So it is entirely justified. The board would decide when they need to go operational and when they shouldn't, if they know when to do it. If they don't know when to, then it can be a big problem.
Okay, that's very insightful, and I'll be looking forward to the full article.
Yes, I'll send you a copy of that article.
Okay, thank you so much. And are there any red flags that will tell you that the strategy is not being executed well?
Yes, there. I mean, first of all, you need a strategic plan, then you need an annual operational plan, and then the board needs to monitor that plan on a quarterly basis. So I think the quality of reports that you get is very important, because you are simply going to be comparing your actual performance versus your budgeted performance. And when we talk of performance, it's not just financial performance. There are also non-financial indicators that you have. Because, for example, if you said you are going to open a plant by end of first quarter, if
Yes.
the plant is not open by first quarter, you have to ask why it hasn't been opened. And if you find that normally what happens that if the company is just missing targets, you didn't open the plant by the first quarter. If you said you were going to open a new branch in Eastern Province, or 20 branches, but you've only opened 15. You said you're going to employ 15 people in a department, you've only employed 10. And there are all those things you're missing. If it's happening on a consistent basis, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
You can miss something once in a while, and it depends on how the magnitude of whatever you're missing. Some things should never be missed because maybe the whole success depends on that thing happening. For example, a plant. If your growth is dependent on a plant and it should be opened by the half year, so it means you're expecting new revenue from there in that half year. If that plant is not opened even 3 months later, by September, that's already a red flag.
Yeah.
So you have to look at what risk is attached to you missing that target. But I think that's one of the most common targets: missing targets, changing dates. You have a meeting, you're changing, moving dates. Should have been February. Oh, we've moved it to July. In July, or
Yes.
moved it to September. All those are red flags. You
Yeah.
have to do a root cause analysis. What is causing that, and find out what the real problem is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really, really interesting. And so when you look back now, 25 years across sectors, what does good strategy really mean?
Well, good strategy is a strategy that helps an organization meet its goals, because a strategy has got a goal.
Yes.
So if you meet the goals that you set, it means it's a good strategy. So I think that's the best way of measuring strategy, to see if it's achieving its intended objectives. And if it's missed the objectives, before outrightly saying it's a bad strategy, you need to understand why you missed. Sometimes you can justify missing certain objectives, sometimes you cannot. So it's always good to understand any objectives that have been not achieved.
Okay. And when you look back at your career, what career move most shaped the strategies that you are today?
I think the game changer was joining Airtel. As I told you,
Yeah.
Airtel Business School, it's a different place. I can compare to other. I've worked for different multinationals. There's Ernst and Young in South Africa. There's CMI, which is global. All
Yes.
these multinationals I've worked for. But even though these are very respectable brand leaders, they would win awards and everything, it can't compare to what I learned when I was at Airtel, and what I was able to do there. As I said, Airtel, it's not just about the mindset change, it's just the scientific way in which they do business. It's a machine, and the business is very complicated.
Yeah.
Telecoms is not an easy industry. I struggled just to understand the industry in the first 1 year. Telecom, it's especially when you're large, covering the whole country. There are just too many pieces. That whole machinery, the value chain is so complicated, and it's working like an engine. So to understand how the engine works is not easy, and I think, and because of that, performance management, which is what I was doing, is not that easy. But then I learned how you monitor, track everything per second. We track everything per minute, everything per day,
Wow.
daily.
Yeah.
Everything is tracked on a daily basis, hourly basis, monitoring what's happening. If something is not performing according to how you forecasted, you have to find out why.
Why?
And to find out why, you're not going to sit in a meeting and then give an answer after 1 week. No. You need the answer in hours, because there you're selling minutes. So if you're selling minutes, seconds, everything has to be done within a minute, within a second, because every minute costs you quantify, it's literally lots of money per minute.
Yeah.
So if things have gone wrong in just 1 hour, you actually lose a few $1,000,000. If you have a promotion that is not working well because something went wrong, or it's not working according to the way you planned, every day you could be losing $1-2 million. So you find that you're always, so when you introduce a promotion, they're changing its mechanics every day, because maybe they're not meeting the targets. So the mechanics will be changed, the way it works. So you find that the rules that were set at the beginning, they will be changing. Okay, now you find there's an extra offer given, whatever, until you meet the target. So all those things that you see when the promotions are introduced, it's not like it's introduced, it runs for 90 days, you sit back, You're looking at the data every day and changing the mechanics how it wins. So sometimes you'll be given more airtime, you'll be given more what prizes. You introduce a new big prize. Maybe there was only one car. Now you're introducing 4 cars. It's because you're not going to meet the target. So introduce a sweetener to make sure you meet your target.
Oh, wow.
So that's how it works. So there's a lot of things that happen behind the background which people don't see, but there's a lot of hard work that people go through just for you to see that the end product. And now with mobile money, it just bringing now more complicated dynamics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see that. That's very, very interesting. And so, if you were to start your career today, starting over,
Over. Yeah.
what would you have done differently?
What I would have done differently. Well. That's interesting. I think it's funny. So from those sectors we talked about, I had interest in development sector, profit sector, but I also had interest in the financial sector. Now, I only got exposed to the financial sector much later on,
Yes.
and and it's like the entry that I used was top down. Mostly people in sectors enter in a junior level, then you rise.
Yes.
Now, with the financial sector, I entered on the board level, then I went CEO level. So I got the
Oh,
experience from the board and went down. So I think if I wanted to do it differently, I would have maybe tried to enter the financial sector at an earlier stage, maybe
yes.
at middle management stage. And I think, telecoms and financial sectors are like they're engines of economic growth.
Yeah.
And those are sectors where skills will always be required. And it's where, if you're working in there, you are making a very big impact on the environment in the societies that you live. So I think I would have wanted to join, much earlier at the middle management level to understand the sector much better. Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And in conclusion, what legacy do you hope to leave in the organizations and boards that you serve?
Yeah, I think the legacy I always try and leave is, wherever you go, you must leave an impact such that people will remember you and they'll always be making a reference to you even when you're not there.
Yeah.
And sometimes they would call you and maybe ask you for help or just invite you. I'll just give an example. There's a board where I sat on. Zika seconded me on the Media Institute for Southern Africa. This is the body for journalists in the country.
Yes.
So I was there for one term, about 3 years. And when I joined them, they were making losses. They were getting lots of donor funding, but because they had financial mismanagement, their funding dropped to about 20%. They were actually on the verge of closing. So when I joined them, I helped them rebuild their financial systems and internal control systems, brought in credibility to a point that now, and then also help them to, because they built in strong financial systems. The way now, the other thing is now ask them to find a way of diversifying new donors, trying to get funding. They used to get mostly of the funding from Europe and European agencies, but trying to get more funding from the US government. But then the US government, they wouldn't give you money if you had a history of frauds and things like that.
Yeah.
But then by the time I was leaving, they were able to get funding from USAID, different USAID agencies, and to a point that now the ones who had shunned them from Europe would actually, instead of them waiting for an advert, they would go to them and tell them, "We've got this funding. Do you want it?" They
Oh,
would even be invited into the European Parliament to go and talk.
yeah.
And I mean, I left that board more than 3 years ago.
Yeah.
They called me and offered me an award for having helped them in their journey and transformation. So even though I'm not on the board anymore, I'm like a friend of MISA
Yes.
because they still remember me as someone who helped transform that board. And the company is now, I mean, it's doing very, very well. I mean, they've got so many grants. Even though USAID funding went away, they're still on their feet right now. They've got diversified funding, and all that is because of having strong governance and financial management systems. I mean, to a point where you're even being called in Parliament in
Wow.
Europe. But they still remember, so they still call me.
Wow.
So that's the type of I think impact someone should have when you're on a board. Even when you're not there, people should still remember you for something that you did there, not just sitting there and whatever minutes. No, 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 no.
Yes.
You need an impact that's lasting, because that impact, they see it when they see the new funding, the solid balance sheet that they have. They still remember this person helped us. So I think that's the type of legacy I would want to have on the other boards that I sit as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Mr. Jetty Lungu, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this interesting podcast. It's been quite an honor being here.
Thank you so, so much. And for you in the audience, what has resonated with you? Please feel free to write in the comment section your key takeaway from this podcast episode where we have been discussing strategy across sectors. This has been the Money and People podcast from us over here. It's goodbye, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.